Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Frank's Art Studio. Today you will be learning how to do a flip cup. I will teach you how to mix your paints with pouring medium, the canvases I am using, and how to pour your paints into a cup and flip them onto your canvas to make your painting. Okay guys, let's get right into it. Just want to tell you a little bit of what I'm using today. Today I am using a 8x8 standard canvas from Kmart. It's what I like to use when I am teaching people how to do acrylic paint pouring. Alright guys, now we'll talk about the paint we're going to be using today. Today I will be using Mart's metallic phthalo green. I will be using another Mart acrylic paint, crimson, and another Mart acrylic paint, cobalt blue. And I will be mixing those with my pouring medium, which is just a standard PVA glue. You can use any standard PVA glue. You can use the white. You can also use the clear. Alright guys, let's continue. Let's get on to mixing your paint in your pouring medium and getting your consistency right. It's a very important thing that you get your consistency right, because if you are out just a little bit in one of your colors, it will not mix properly and you'll end up with a muddy brown yuck color. So let's get on with that part. Clear our workspace so we don't mess up our canvas, even though it's going to get dirty anyway, because we're going to pour paint all over it, but we got to get the paints all correct. Okay, now to start, what we do, we get ourselves some little cups. I use these little cheap shot glass type plastic things that you get from the $2 shop. You get like 40 or 50 of them for like $3. I generally use those because you get a lot of them and you can make up a lot of different colors. But we're only using 3 colors today. That's okay. Make sure you got yourself some paint stirring sticks. I use popsicle sticks. They are the easiest thing to come by. Generally what we do to mix our paints is 1 part paint, 2 parts pouring medium. And then we water it down with some water to get the proper consistency. We will run through that, how to make sure you have the right consistency after we mix our paints. Okay, we will start with the phthalo green from Mart. What we do is, I don't like measuring things. I do most of mine by eye. We generally put in what you think would be how much you're going to use, which I'll be using a bit. So we put a nice bit of the color into the bottom of the cup. And we grab the pouring medium. I put all my glue into a old Pepsi Max bottle, so I have a bunch of it ready to go every time that I go to use it. So we just pour it in there, put double, so 2 times pouring medium, which was actually 3 times. So since I put too much pouring medium in, we'll add just a little bit more color. Because you got to make sure you have plenty of the pigments in there from the color. Then you just really mix it well with your popsicle stick, or as I call it, my mixing sticks. Make sure you mix it well. Make sure you get all the pouring medium mixed in with the color. You still got the same color. It's a nice, very thick. It's too thick for pouring. Make sure all the pigment is mixed in. So So you have a nice mixture of your pigments in your pouring medium. It is very important. You don't want a big clump of paint coming out and ruining your very nice painting you have just made. So just make sure you mix it very, very well. What we do now is we gotta thin it out. As you can tell, it is a very thick mixture. It's like mound on top of a mound on top of a mound. That is way too thick. You cannot do a good pour with that. So what we do, we add a little bit of water. We keep adding it until we get the consistency that we want, which I will talk about after I mix the paints. I will mix all my paints and have them ready. And yes, it will take time to get all your paints mixed. It's not a slow process. Just keep mixing. You gotta have that perfect consistency. You scrape around the bottom, get all that up. And when you check for your pouring consistency, when you do like that, make sure you wipe all the paint off your stick. Mix twice and pull up. See, it's still very thick. Very, very thick. It's too thick. Add a bit more water. No, I think I got too much. But that's okay. If you got too much, you could always add a bit more pouring medium or paint to thicken it up again. And now that's looking good. Give it a real good mix. Make sure that water's mixed through it all really good. Because you don't want extra thin on top and really thick on the bottom. Because, yet again, you will not be able to pour very well. See how it just leaves a nice little trail? Actually, that's still just a little touch thick. So add just a little bit, like 2 drops. When you start getting it where it's close, you only add 1 or 2 drops, because any more than that, it'll end up too thin. See, wipe all the excess off. Give it 1, 2, 3, and pull up. See, just a little trail. That's all it's leaving, just a little trail. That's perfect consistency. You do that with the other ones as well. We will do the cobalt blue. Get your cobalt blue. Your pouring medium. And always make sure you leave enough room to put your water in. So you can thin it down if you need to, or thicken it up so you have that little bit of room to play with. And again, you mix the color in. You mix it well. Then you check your consistency after you have it nice and mixed to make sure you have the right consistency, which this is obviously going to be very thick. You can just tell it's going to be thick. Some paints are very, very thick. Some paints are not. See, it just kind of blobs off. It makes like mound on top of mound that is way, way too thick. Again, mix it up. Make sure it's all in there nice and mixed in, all the water and paint. So you don't have blobs of paint and glue and it's all nice and mixed. See, it's way too thick, way too thick. Again, take your water. Oops. This should be close to the consistency we want. Once I get them all up to the consistency that I think they're close on, I will show you how to test that consistency to make sure you have the right consistency for your pour. And they're all about the same. I mean, this is one good way of telling is your pour on top of the other and it just leaves a trace. But I will show you the other way too. The other way is more accurate. See, that's perfect. I'm going to do the crimson next. Okay, for a bit of crimson, it's mixed the same way. You put your 1 and your 1. 1 by 2. So there's the red. I want the crimson, not the red. My apologies. Oh no, too much. Nope, that's perfect. Perfect. Take your stirring stick and you stir it like the others. Make sure you stir it in there good. All that pigment in and mix through all that pouring medium. The more pigmented your paints, the less paint you have to use because your pouring medium will stretch the color pigments through the pouring medium. The Mutt Mark paints that I'm using, they are a cheaper paint, but they are a good paint. This is the longest and hardest part of the whole entire process, is getting your consistency right and choosing the right colors. Which I really shouldn't have used the crimson. I might end up with a bunch of mud, but we'll see how we go. See, there we are. The paints are now mixed with the pouring medium. Okay guys, now we're going to test the actual consistency of the paint. So what we will do is, I've got this little piece of cardboard. I will use that to test my consistency. So what we do is put a little bit of each color on just little bit, a little dot of each one, just to see how it runs. And to test those, we just take those and we put it that way. 1, 2, 3. See, the blue is still very thick. I need to add more water to the blue to make it more like these guys, to make it more consistent. Okay, so what we'll do, we'll grab the blue. Add a few drops of water in there to lighten that consistency a little bit. Put 3 drops. Give it a good mix. As like before, just mix it in. Make sure it all mixes properly. Still looks a bit thick. Make sure it's really mixed in good. And we'll do another drop test. Consistency drop test like we did before. We'll give it a good wipe off. Put the blue right in the middle again. Nice dab of the blue. Do a complete test again. Okay, and then we do the test again. We will go. See, now the red's thick. You just kind of keep playing until you get them around about the same. The red just needs a couple drops and it will be good. And then we will get on to the actual cup part and we'll do the paint pouring into the cup and then the flip cup part. Just finish this part and I will be back shortly. Alright guys, now I'm going to start layering my cup. I just use a little drinking party cup, the little plastic ones. They do well. For the 8x8 you need about 70 mil of paint. So that's basically those 3 little cups. So what we do is we layer the paint inside of our cup. By pouring the paint into the cup little by little, we don't put the whole lot in, and then the whole lot we mix it by putting layers. We always give a little mix. Make sure our paints are mixed before we put them in. So I will put my 3 paints here so you can see them all as I grab and layer my paints in the cup. Always give them a bit of a mix. Always a very good thing to do to make sure your paints are still nice and properly mixed. Give them all a nice little mix. So I suggest we put the light one on the bottom. So we just pour a little bit in. Just keep pouring a little bit by little bit, and they'll cause a nice little layer effect. You just keep doing that until you get all the paint in the cup. Don't be afraid to change the mix of color that you put in order or anything like that. It won't make any difference. Like here, I'll put the red in now. Put the green on top of the red. The blue on top of the green. Just have a little fun with it. No harm in having fun with your colors. See what kind of things. I mean, yeah, sometimes you might end up with a browny, muddy kind of color here or there, but you know, that's the joys of this kind of painting. You just have a bunch of fun with it. Mix it all up. Get all them nice colors in there. You just continue layering until you get all your colors in. So we'll put the red in. We'll just do big blob of red. All the red in there now. And we got the blue. All the blue in there. And that phthalo green. I like that phthalo green. Right on the edge and let it slip in there. Now slowly mix kind of through. Don't worry too much because they're basically the same sort of consistency, so they'll kind of keep separate at the same time as partially mix. If you look, I have a layered cup in there. There's a few different colors through. What I also like to do is take a skewer, stab in, across those colors. Just gives it a little tiny mix. And then what you do after that is you take your canvas, you take your cup, put your cup on your canvas upside down. You just let it sit there for a minute. Okay, as it's sitting there for a minute, you still have a little bit of paint in each one of these cups. What you do is you just basically color the corners with them. Pop that little bit of extra on the corners. Try to cover them up as much as possible because that's the hardest part to get the paint in. So if you have something to help push it into the corners, the better it is. It doesn't matter because most of what you're putting there on the corner will end up being pushed off anyway by the paint as you're flexing it through the actual tilting and things like that, what you will be seeing shortly once I release the paint from the cup. Leave it sit there so all the paints can kind of mix on the way through to make the nice patterns and colors for your painting. I like to really get the corners covered. Like I said, it will all mix anyway. It's all going to be mixed. So it doesn't matter if the corner's all red or all blue or green. It all ends up mixed and it will be all nicely mixed by the time it's all done. This is just to make sure that your corners are covered because that's the hardest part to do. Alright, now we're going to let the paint out and we're going to maneuver it around the actual canvas to make a nice painting. What I like to do, never just lift up, it just doesn't work. I like to push and then pull. All those nice colors coming through, the crimson. Yeah, I know there's still some in there, but that's okay. We got most of it on here, and we just gently move it around the canvas. Get a nice coat on the canvas. Just move it around, get the color flowing. Don't worry about getting a little bit on your fingers. It all washes off. You don't want to lose too much because you need it to cover the top part of the canvas. You can use your finger to help it go a little bit. Just keep it moving. Just kind of use your finger to spread it around the edges. Make sure your side edges are done. It's very important to make sure your canvas is covered. As you can tell, I have this on a rotating homemade cake stand. I made this myself using a fidget spinner and a placemat. Have a quick look in your spin to make sure your edges are covered. One of my favorite things to do is give it a spin. Make sure you have yourself a towel so you can wipe some of the paint off your fingers. Yeah, it kind of gotten a little muddy. You can see the little brown through the crimson there, but that's okay. It still looks quite nice. Get yourself one of these little torches. They're not very inexpensive. You can get them on Amazon. They're to pop the bubbles. You never want to hold the torch in one spot too long. You want to move quick. It just pops all the air bubbles in the paint. So it doesn't, yeah, that's perfect. So it doesn't make air pockets in your painting. That is not a very good thing to have. That's another reason why I spin it, because it thins the paint and it pops the air bubbles. See, that's an air bubble that popped and it looks really terrible. So you have to really, really be careful. Try to touch it up. And there you go. That is an acrylic paint pour. That's what it looks like when it's done. Now when it's dry, it goes a different color. You'll actually have to put a finish on it to make it shine. Tune in and see what happens next time.